I'd just like to invite you, Dr. Sandra Michael, Commissioner Michael, please give us your 3-4 minute overview.
Of course, you know, I do like to start also, not just the nutrition, it's all about the terrain. And that's where we need to start, the terrain. And our terrain, our bioterrains have been compromised. We're living in a toxic soup between the EMF, the ELF, the radiation, the electrosmog of that, and the controversy over 5G, which really should not be that much of a controversy as far as, you know, one paper, September 13th, 2017, was 180 scientists from 35 countries recognizing, you know, the symptoms of 5G, the hypersensitivity, but the Alzheimer's, cancer being related, and their concerns about flu-like symptoms. And this was a study from 2017, flu-like symptoms. So some of the symptoms of the radiation, which doctors are not trained to recognize or look at, the issues of radiation poisoning, and the 5G has specific frequencies with the 60 megahertz millimeter waves, which interferes with the oxygen uptake in the hemoglobin. And so that is part of what we're seeing with this, that with this virus, is the body is not uptaking the oxygen. And so part of what she was talking about is standard of care when somebody goes in with the symptoms of COVID-19. It's SARS-2. It's, you know, we've got a weaponized version where they took S proteins and to make that human-to-human transmission, and it's spliced. Everybody, anybody that's looked at the research knows that this was lab created. It was lab recombinant. And created to be very virulent as far as to spread very easly. So there, you know, that gain of function studies that they actually did on this virus, and that's admitted. And it was released out of Wuhan, somewhere where there's that stage 4 lab. And I want to mention some of the background with that. The labs there is, that's very connected to the World Health Organization, which, you know, the connection with Gates, but evidently Soros was a major funder of that lab. And so this has been a long time agenda. And you can look at UN, you know, the UN agendas, depopulation agendas, the eugenicists, which there's a long history of that agenda being promulgated through Gates, etc. So there's those aspects. So when somebody presents at a doctor or a facility with SARS-like symptoms or this COVID flu symptoms, you know, there's the shortness of breath, which is part of it because of that oxygen uptake being interfered with. And I did read the studies of how this virus actually interferes with that oxygen uptake in the body. And it's very different than using ventilators. So the second reign is there's a lot of research now. I mean, a lot of research. 2 studies from France. The latest one from Dr. Raoul is over 1,000 patients. You have Dr. Zelenko in New York. It's 900 patients the last I checked on his studies, having tremendous results with this combination of hydroxychloroquine, the azithromycin, and zinc. And hydroxychloroquine has been in use more than 70 years as an anti-malarial. Yes, the antiviral effects of hydroxychloroquine, but it's also a channel that gets the zinc into the cells. So again, we're back to nutrition. In a sense, this is a nutrient. Zinc in the cells stops the replication and the attachment of the virus into the cells. And so it's reducing the viral load very, very quickly. A doctor in California came out and said, even people with severe symptoms, when they're presenting, they're coming out and, you know, and being basically rather symptom-free in approximately 8 hours. Dr. Zelenko talked about people could breathe again from that shortness of breath in 3 to 4 hours with this combination protocol of hydroxychloroquine and the azithromycin with the zinc, and then they've also added vitamin C to that, and vitamin D. Everybody knows that vitamin D is very, very important for preventing the flu, and this is something everybody should be doing. So I get very concerned when they want people to stay inside when they need the vitamin D, and just being outside will prevent most of it. And so for most people, the symptoms are very mild unless they've taken Advil. They're finding a real connection with the Advil and some of the other things. So it was like it was designed almost for it to affect people, because people will go pull an Advil or ibuprofen out of their medicine kit at the first sign of a headache, which is one of the first signs. And then that's part of the setup where those are the people having more severe incidents there. So that's one of the problems. I've also been on with Dr. Victor Marcial Vega, who is a signatory and part of that Shanghai official government recommendations for high-dose vitamin C, both through orally and IVs. Dr. Victor Marcial Vega is very excited about is he was fast-tracked through NIH to actually get that study done. That happened this last week. In less than 24-hour approval, he has, of course, he's very highly credentialed, top 1% of credentials, MDs, Johns Hopkins trained oncologist, but he's been working with the high-dose vitamin C protocols for over 20 years. And so that is now an official study. And that's what was primarily used in China is the high-dose vitamin C IVs and orally, which also is another thing that stops it. What's happening in the US is their standard protocol of somebody presenting not being able to breathe, and with the hypoxia, the oxygen levels falling, they've been trained to put people into these ventilators, and you had everybody demanding these ventilators. We need more ventilators. What they're actually finding now is 80% of the people being put on those ventilators are dying because they're being put into a coma, essentially, from the propanol and fentanyl to be able to intubate them. And they're dying alone without their family. And this is a total travesty. But they actually found that it's making it worse. It's because you wouldn't have that many dying on the ventilators. That it's very contraindicated with the way this particular virus. It's not the typical, it's very atypical in how that presents. But again, standard of care was intubation. And in the meantime, I know Paula found the research of how much money the companies producing ventilators has gone up. But ventilators should be a last resort. When you have something that, what Dr. Zelenko found is in the first 3 to 4 hours of hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, and the zinc, it's a $12 approximately cost. Can't be patented, and people can breathe in 3 to 4 hours. It's a 5-day protocol essentially, and 98% of people this is highly effective, and this is what the studies are backing up. There's like 6 different studies internationally. You've got New York and California, so this should be one of the first things done. And then if that doesn't work, let's go to the high-dose vitamin C IVs and protocols like that. And then alternative cellular pathways, of course, as John Martin talked about, because we've got to have the energy for our bodies to heal. And that's part of, the biophysics of it that we work with. I believe it's possible to produce safe vaccines. That's not what we have in any way, shape, or form being presented at this time. But the whole premise of it is really old and outdated science. Our real focus should be on how do we produce health? How do we create health? How do we stay healthy? Instead, it's a pharma cabal. Everything has been big pharma, relegated to big pharma with the agendas, being aware as intelligence of the background agendas for population control, population reduction, but control through fear, through the media, the propaganda machine to keep people in fear, to be able to control. It's old Hegelian dialect stuff, problem, reaction, solution. And so they create the problem, blow it out of the water. It's totally a plandemic. It's created, and then make it that, they actually Gates came out and said there could be no mass gathering. We can't go back to anything normal until there's mass vaccination certificates.
Can I stop you there? Does Mr. Bill Gates have any kind of medical qualification whatsoever?
Not as his training so but he's got a background of his father being a eugenicist. He ran Planned Parenthood. So you have, and that's a whole business in itself of what's done with the harvesting of the organs from the aborted fetuses and the glands and the discharges and all the child trafficking issues that's behind all that as well. But it's been a planned agenda for a long time for population control, for global control, new world order. There's many things, and we need to rise. We need to rise up as humankind and go, we're not going to take this anymore. And we have things, we have means to stop it. And that's what we need to demand.